We will start with the latest news on Cristiano Ronaldo, who has travelled out to Qatar from Lisbon with the Portugal national team today following the final part of his tell-all interview with Piers Morgan airing. We are now hearing that Manchester United have decided to begin legal measures to terminate his contract. And we're going to talk more about this as we welcome in our Manchester correspondent, Rob Dawson, who is in Qatar. Frank Leboeuf is joining us from LA as well. Rob, what can you tell us about this situation and the measures that the club will be looking to take?
Yeah, well, United released a statement on Friday to say that they're going to take appropriate steps to deal with the Cristiano Ronaldo interview, and we're led to believe that one of those is to terminate his contract. They've decided that Cristiano Ronaldo has gone one step too far, that he's criticised the club too much, he's criticised the manager too much, and it's time for him to leave.
What's been the fans' reaction then, Rob, to this news?
I mean, the fans have largely, that they're backing the decision. That they don't believe that any player is ever bigger than the club, and they think that Ronaldo has gone one step too far. He will remain a club legend for what he's done for the club in the past, but players can't be seen to be criticising the manager, particularly a very popular manager who's only come in the summer, a manager who looks to be turning the club around. And the feeling on the ground in Manchester is that this is the right choice, even though it's a club legend, even though it's Cristiano Ronaldo. They're backing the club and they're backing Erik ten Hag.
Does he remain a club legend after this, Craig?
Well, there's no doubt this has tarnished his Manchester United career to an extent. However, I don't think it tarnishes his overall legacy in the game, because the guy's achieved so much. I think, unfortunately for him, it's an inability at the end to accept that, as we've discussed over the last 4 or 5 days, an inability to accept that Mother Nature has caught up and he can no longer do what he once did, and managers don't now see him in the light that they once saw him, and for him that is clearly difficult, really difficult to absorb. Now that doesn't condone what his actions have been, and that doesn't condone an interview. The interesting thing for me, or one of them, is if these reports of the potential sacking and termination of the contract are correct, is whether his legal team will fight it, and if it'll be a long drawn-out affair, or whether he accepts it and basically admits he was in the wrong. So I don't know from that respect, but look, he's had 20 years of glittering success. This is a small tarnish, I think, at the end of his career that he could have been doing without.
Rob, do you think that the club are confident that they have grounds to take these measures?
Yeah, certainly. They've been taking legal advice since the interview first started to air on Monday. So, this isn't a sort of a snap decision that they've taken. Every Premier League player signs the same contract, and in there's a very broad clause that allows the club to terminate the contract if they feel the player has brought that club into disrepute. And United certainly feel that Ronaldo has done that. Moving forward from here, that they want this to be resolved very, very swiftly. That there is a suggestion that they may even look to sue for breach of contract if Ronaldo was to challenge this. They want this over very, very quickly. That they're hoping that Ronaldo will play ball a little bit and help them finish this very, very quickly, because they don't want a long, drawn-out process, and legal action could span weeks and months and even years, and they just don't want that. They want a very, very clean break. They want the United to be able to restart the season after the World Cup in Qatar without Ronaldo, and to move on, a fresh start, if you like, under Erik ten Hag.
Frank, what do you make of it all?
Well, I hear all of that, and it makes me sad in a way, because when you see the career of Cristiano Ronaldo, I mean, you have to accept the fact that the guy was absolutely exceptional, but it might be an exit of his career after the World Cup, if he doesn't find any other big club. And I think it's sad, because it shouldn't be that way. He should have been rewarded for what he did. And now they're taking the picture of him in the building, they terminate the contract, out of business. What's going to happen within a month for Cristiano Ronaldo? Really looking forward to seeing how he's going to react to that. Again, that's sad for me, because that's not what you want to see when you see the end of a career of a great player.
Gary Neville's spoken out about the situation on Twitter. Here is his reaction to the news that we've heard today about the club looking to terminate the contract. He said that it's come to a point where arguably United's greatest ever talent is likely to be sacked. It didn't need to be like this. A mature conversation a few weeks ago between both parties could have secured a smooth exit. Do you agree, Stevie?
Do you know what I think? I think in a couple of weeks' time, it'll all have disappeared, because it's raw right now, and yes, it's hot topic right now, and when it's like that, you think, yes, this is going to tarnish his reputation, because we're thinking about it, we're talking about it. But the truth is, all this is going to disappear. And like people like Maradona, who we know all the other problems he had off the field, has that tarnished his reputation? I mean, if you compare what he did off the field to what Ronaldo's doing now, but yet we don't look at Maradona in any other light other than, I mean, the greatest of all time, in my opinion. And because of that, it hasn't changed my opinion. And the same thing will happen with Ronaldo. Yes, he should go. Yes, he should get the sack. But I'm telling you now, very soon, it'll be all forgotten. No question.
Do you agree, Craig? It'll all be forgotten very soon?
Well, I think Rob used the words which I think are perfect. Move on. Everybody needs to move on from this. And the cleaner it is for Ronaldo and the cleaner it is for United, the better for everybody. And he can get on with going wherever that is, be it somewhere for a lot of money or back home to Portugal or maybe a surprise move somewhere that none of us saw coming. I don't know. He's certainly, and I stick by my words from last week, he's a problematic soon-to-be 38-year-old for a manager. Now, some clubs might be willing to suck that up. We'll see. I mean, big clubs, we'll find out. I have my doubts about that. But I certainly hope that we see the good side of Ronaldo in the World Cup. I don't think anybody begrudges him going out there and performing for his country. I mean, the guy's got well over 100 caps. His goals are frightening. The difficulty for him is he's got very little football under his belt. There's a lot of psychological sort of stuff going on in his head. And the other side of the coin, all these, I don't know exactly when this interview with Piers Morgan was, but it couldn't have been too long ago, and all this stuff going on with potential terminations of contract, these things all weigh on people. Even if you're Ronaldo, you get into a World Cup, you go into bed at night, you're thinking about it. Where am I going to go next? Is my contract going to be terminated? All this kind of stuff. That's goes without saying. That is not ideal preparation when you're going into probably the last major tournament of his career. I
mean, Frank, you know what it takes to win a World Cup. How will the Portugal team be dealing with this kind of outside noise?
Well, it's a big deal because it takes too big part of the thing. It goes to from a club, Manchester United, to talk about the biggest star of the world football and the biggest star of Portugal ever, I think. And of course, it's gonna get something into the dressing room. It's up to the coach to make sure that he doesn't spray too much and they don't talk about it too much, and they are more focused on what they have to do during the competition. The players, you know, of course, they know how to forget about it and be focused on what they have to do. But how Ronaldo is going to be behaving in football-wise, I'm talking, you know, is going to depend on the reaction of the players about that topic. If it goes well, if he scores goals, and if everything goes very well for Portugal, it's going to be forgotten, as Stevie said, very, very soon. If they get out of the group stages, meaning they are eliminated, that's going to be a problem.
What do you think about Ronaldo then, Frank, when it comes to his mindset going into this? Is he just going to be immune to the criticism that he's dealing with right now and be able to focus and give 100% for Portugal?
I'm with Craig with that. It touches the players, and any players, even if you're one of the biggest stars, if he's not the biggest star of the football, he's going to pretend that he doesn't care. And I've seen many players saying that, you know, I don't care, I don't read the press, and I don't pay attention to that. Now, of course, there is some question marks. As Craig mentioned, what's going to happen with me in a month from now? What I'm going to do? How I'm going to finish my career? He wants to resolve the problem because he wants to sign for another club. So of course, in the middle, between games, he will have to talk to his agent to talk about his future in a championship competition because he doesn't want to finish with the World Cup. He wants to carry on. So it's only fair that he needs to question his agent for his future. So of course, he's going to think about it.
Well, he's not immune to the criticism, because you saw his reaction to the aforementioned Neville. Yep. When he had some criticism about which he had from most quarters. It has to be honest. There was one or two strangely enough, who sort of were on his side, Ronaldo that is, when he hot-footed it down the tunnel before the end of the game, which is a little strange in itself. But clearly his reaction to certain pundits, particularly in the UK, shows that nobody's immune to it. Nobody's immune to the criticism. It's just how much can he put the lack of game time and all that's going on in his head, how much can he put that behind him, leave it at the hotel and take to the stadium a clear mindset. Can he do that? That's a big question.
Most players, when the ball comes out, can put everything to the side. The problem is, a situation like this means that it's his preparation that's going to be affected. Because I don't care who you are, you do think about these things. And Ronaldo will be thinking about it. He won't be sleeping as well. He'll be looking over his shoulder, thinking that everybody's listening to what he's saying. There'll be so many things, and what it'll do is it affects his preparation. The easy bit is the training, and the easier bit is actually playing, because you can get rid of the cobwebs, they all go away. But your preparation's affected big time.
Mark Ogden thinks that he thrives under this sort of pressure, though. It's almost as if that's what helps him to raise another level of his game.
Yeah, but
you can do that when you're at your best, right?
Yeah, he thrived in this when he was 28, 29, 30. Right, when he was maybe even a little bit after that, when he was a phenomenon. I mean, a phenomenon. I remember that goal, and it wasn't too long ago, maybe 3 or 4 years ago at Juventus, when I've never seen a guy jump that high at the back post and head it in. I thought, Jesus, he's still doing it. But he's not that player anymore. So, yeah, it'll inspire him, but the body's the body. You know what I mean? It can only do
and the legs
37. Can only do at 37, almost 38. What your body tells you to do.
What do you think about that, Rob? What our colleague Mark Ogden thinks about Cristiano Ronaldo thriving under this sort of pressure?
No, I agree with the guys in the studio that possibly at 28, 29, 30, but it's still a distraction. Whether it's a little distraction or a big distraction, it's a distraction. And teams that win World Cups will say afterwards that their preparation was absolutely seamless. It's the teams that go through this preparation in a smooth manner that tend to win World Cups. And whether Cristiano is bothered by this or not, it's a distraction. It's going on in the back of his mind while he's meant to be preparing for a World Cup, and ultimately that can't be a good thing.
It's happiest man on the planet. I wonder where he'll be in the World Cup's going on. He's a Dutch manager of Manchester United, because this has worked out well for him. Because Ronaldo was a problem for him in the summer. Most of the summer, we talked about Man United and some of their encouraging pre-season results, but a lot of it was driven by the journalists that were following the Ronaldo situation, and so the press conferences were highly tilted towards the Ronaldo question. Then there was a horrendous start to the season. The Ronaldo issue's never really gone away. It's been front and foremost because he was taken off. I think it was, no, that was last year. It was Brentford he was taken off. He's hardly played. When he has played, they haven't played well. They've played better without him. Then we've had the incidents of not bringing him on in the Man City game. Then we've had this big blow-up. So the main concern for Erik ten Hag now that it seems they've got rid of him, is getting some sort of short-term help, if it is short-term in January, to come in and maybe fill that position that Ronaldo could have filled. That Erik ten Hag saw Ronaldo playing, to an extent, was a guy coming off the bench when he needed him to maybe help him out. That's kind of how he saw Ronaldo. Now, Ronaldo obviously did not see it that way, but that's how the manager saw him. And now he's going to need somebody, you would think, bearing in mind they're in not a bad position to push for the top four in January to the end of the season, to try and maybe help out in that position. That's the sort of major thorn in Erik ten Hag's side.
So now you've got the two sides to the coin. You've got the happiest camper, right, at Manchester United, the Manchester United manager, and you must have a guy, the Portuguese manager, lying in bed at night going, please, please play well. Because he's got the complete opposite problem. That's what they have at Manchester United.
He's going to have to play.
He's absolutely starting.
Yep.
Okay,
but
if
now
I
we're
may,
going to find out. If he doesn't produce, what's the manager made of?
If I may, Kay, the dramatic scenario, the most dramatic scenario that we could see is to see an injury from Ronaldo during the preparation that Stevie was talking, because the guy, as the guy say in the studio, he thinks about it. The worst what could happen to Portugal and Ronaldo is to see Ronaldo getting injured, which I don't hope, of course, because I want to see him playing. I want to see him showing to the world that he's still the same guy. But at the end of the day, you know, if he gets injured, everybody's going to talk about it. What's going wrong, you know, with him? Is it because Manchester United terminated the contract? Is it because of him? The influence, the whatever it could be? That's going to be a nightmare.
I just got one thing, Rob. What are you able to, or do you know what roughly a time frame United are looking at this to make a decision? Do you think we could see some clarification during this World Cup?
That's certainly United's hope. They want this over in days. As I say, the threat privately to sue for breach of contract is not their jumping off point. That is something that they've got up their sleeve in case this drags on, but they certainly don't want that. They want this over in days. I think ideally, probably they would like it over before Portugal begin their World Cup campaign against Ghana, and that's on November the 24th. Whether that happens or not, whether that's a bit optimistic, you know, only time will tell, but they certainly don't want this to be dragging into sort of weeks and months. That's the last thing they want. They want this over as quickly as possible.
So the club, therefore, will be hoping for Ronaldo to help them in this situation, Rob, to make it as easy and smooth as possible. But why would he do that when it's going to leave him without a contract and without a club?
Well, quite, and they are relying on Cristiano to play ball a little bit with this. That they need to come to some kind of mutual termination and just go their separate ways. If Cristiano wants to make this difficult, he certainly can make it difficult. Whether he's going to want to do that in the middle of a World Cup, probably his last World Cup, you know, again, only time will tell. I think they're hoping that Ronaldo wants a new club and that he's got a club or clubs waiting to sign him when he leaves Man United. Because if Cristiano Ronaldo wants to fight this through the courts or whichever measures that he wants to take it to, then he certainly can. And that's the last thing Man United want. They've told us that they want this resolved swiftly, is the word that they've used. And that means days rather than weeks.
But I think, as Rob mentioned earlier, if I was hearing correctly, that one of United's standpoints could be that they could counter-sue. So if Ronaldo was to try and take it, they could counter-sue, and it could end up costing, you know, Ronaldo himself a lot of money plus legal fees. You know, I'm not a QC, clearly, but you know, this could get messy down that road, and I think for all parties, nobody really wants to see that.
So we've heard him talk in the interview about how he had a big offer from Saudi Arabia. In fact, it was 350 million for 2 years.
See, I don't understand this, because we sat here in the summer, and I think it was Gab and Jules and one or two others who are closer to the situation, maybe even Rob, who are closer to the situation than us, said it wasn't about the money when he wanted to leave in the summer. It was about the gravitas. It was about playing in the Champions League because his career was coming to an end, or it was dwindling away. And that he didn't want to play in the Europa League. He wanted to be scoring goals at the highest level.
Right, which is why he didn't take this offer to go to Saudi Arabia, right?
Well, right.
See, again,
why is he even telling us about the offer? Again, it's either about the money or it's not about the money.
Ronaldo again has lost the opportunity to come out on the right side of this, because he can just turn round in the next 5 minutes and say, you know what, I don't want any of the mess. I don't want to be at Manchester United. So you know what, don't sue me, I'm fine, I'm going. And it's all done and dusted. And then at least he'll get some praise, he's doing the right thing, as opposed to all of a sudden it's all about the money when it wasn't about the money. So he's just, every single time he makes a move, he's making himself look worse. Can somebody tell him to do the right thing and just say, I'm done?
No, I didn't see the...
That's the easy bit.
I didn't watch the interview.
Especially if you're Portugal, by the way.
Yeah, I didn't watch the interview to be... I saw clips, but I didn't watch the interview, to be quite frank with you, because I kind of think I know which way it was going. But have I missed anything where he had grounds for complaints that he really was wronged at Man United?
Have you seen the state of the jacuzzi?
He does state where he feels that they haven't supported him, that the facilities weren't what he thought they would be, that he's been disrespected. He does state all of this to explain himself.
Listen, it's not his business what the facilities are. He's an employee of Man United. Yeah. Right, we can all... My God, when I went to Celtic, we didn't have our own training ground. I mean, come on, it's part and parcel. We don't live in an ideal world. I mean, you know...
And then there's the contradictions he feels with the coach as well, not bringing him on in one game out of respect, bringing him on...
There's no such thing...
wanting to bring him on.
There's no such thing in a contract as respect, right? There's a thing called decisions, right? And Manchester United brought a guy in to make big decisions, because that's what that club needed. It needed restructuring, it needed big decisions, both off the field and on the field. There should be no issue with that, apart from the fact a player cannot accept that. There's no wrongdoing in that. You're not going to get any sympathy from anybody.
Okay, so he also feels that they didn't believe him in some things that he said, which was personal family issues.
Well, that's
he feels
different.
that they didn't believe him
Well, that's
as well.
different.
So that in terms of him feeling wronged, that could explain
different.
some
They gave
of
him
it.
time off. That's different. But and look, we can't speak to what went on that side of it. We can only speak about the main things that we saw on the field. You can't go blubbering away in an interview because a manager hasn't brought you on and hasn't respected. Well, you can do what you want, but then you have to face the consequences. I just think he has been so badly advised, unless this is what he wants. Unless this is what he wants, to be out of Man United immediately and he can move on without his however many millions it is. I don't know. Can't answer that question.
You know, if you're a football player and you're going to a club, don't you think it's a smart move to try and find out what's going on at the club before you sign? Is that just me? You know, all of these things he's complaining about were there before he signed. So did he not do his due diligence? Clearly not. So you can't make a decision and then find out things that you could have found out before you sign and then complain about it. How about you figure it out before you do it? And then once you've made the so-called mistake of doing it, you do what everybody else does. You took the responsibility. It was your decision to go there. Now take the responsibility. Don't try and shove it elsewhere, because that's all he's done.
How he moans, just briefly, he moans about the training ground, and I'll go back to this subject that I touched on last week. Was the manager at the time. He knew who the manager was at the time, Ole Gunnar Solskjaer,
He doesn't have anything bad to say about Ole.
Sorry?
He didn't have anything bad to say about Ole Gunnar Solskjaer.
Well,
But yeah,
listen,
he did know who was
Mate.
Well, what, and he thought Ole Gunnar Solskjaer was the second coming of Jurgen Klopp, Pep Guardiola?
he doesn't say that.
So there was
either.
a training ground was a problem? Or a manager who should never have been near that job? What's the problem? Does he expect to go into a club that's been managed by Ole Gunnar Solskjaer and get Sir Alex Ferguson results? Or is it the training ground's fault? I mean, absolute nonsense.
Let's talk about Sir Alex Ferguson now, Rob, because he said that partly Sir Alex Ferguson agrees with some of what he's saying. Obviously, we know the part that he played in getting him back to Manchester United. What's been the thoughts towards Sir Alex after this interview?
I mean, Sir Alex is Sir Alex, and I don't think anything anyone could say about Sir Alex will taint what Man United fans think about him. I think it's interesting that Cristiano has mentioned Sir Alex in the interview, knowing full well that Sir Alex isn't going to come out and speak on either side. He knows full well that Sir Alex is going to keep his counsel and not say anything. So it's an easy name to drop in, particularly when everyone knows, particularly Man United fans, knows the relationship between Sir Alex and Cristiano Ronaldo, and even went into detail about how Sir Alex convinced him to join Man United over Man City. So I don't think anything is going to taint the way that Man United fans feel about Sir Alex. I just thought it was very interesting that Cristiano certainly knows which buttons to press and which names to drop in when he's giving this kind of interview.
What's your instinct tell you then, Rob, as to where he's going to go next? If it isn't Manchester United, if this isn't sorted out, which it doesn't look like it's going to be. He said in the interview he wants to continue playing until he's 40. What does your instinct tell you?
Well, I mean, it goes back to the discussion that the guys have just had in the studio. It's going to be about money. He earns £500,000 a week at Man United, or upwards of that. And if he's demanding that elsewhere, there's only a handful of clubs that can afford to pay that. You're looking at the likes of PSG, Chelsea, or even going somewhere like Saudi Arabia. If he's willing to take a pay cut and just doing it for the love of football, then that opens up a massive market. The likes of Sporting Lisbon would take him in a heartbeat. Napoli would be interested, possibly Atletico Madrid. Diego Simeone is a fan of his. It's going to depend on what his demands are. If he's demanding £500,000 a week or upwards of that, then the market for him is going to be incredibly small. And we saw that in the summer when everyone knew that he wanted to leave Old Trafford. If he's willing to take a pay cut and willing to go somewhere for a smaller amount of money and make himself affordable to these other clubs, then that opens up a much bigger market. And we could see him back at Sporting Lisbon, where he started his career. Again, their manager said that they would love to have him back. It's simply about money.
Obviously, every player has to manage the end of their career. What are your thoughts on this one, Frank, as to how Cristiano Ronaldo's behaving right now, how it's being viewed, and whether it actually does affect those discussions on whether a player is the greatest of all time or not?
Well, as Craig mentioned at the beginning of the show, this segment is what he did during all his career, you know, cannot be erased by that event. But of course, as I always say, the end of your career and the retirement that you decide to have on is part of your career. And if you get out at the right time, you know, it's better to give envy than pity to the world that you are living. And it's not good. It's not good for him. It's not good for the people who love him, and it's not good for football overall. And you know, I mentioned that like 2 years ago when he left Juventus, and he didn't want a 1-year contract. He wanted a 2 years contract. Supposedly wasn't for the money, as we talked about just before. Then he wanted to sign for Manchester City. Then suddenly he signed for Manchester United. It's for me like everything is wrong for the past 2 years. And that's, of course, going to affect the image of the greatest of the time. Nobody, if you love football, will say that Ronaldo didn't do the job. Nobody's going to say that because he did the job. But again, as I said before, it's sad to see that kind of exit, if it's an exit. Hopefully he's going to rebound somewhere else and he's going to be successful. I wish him the best, but it feels more the end of it than anything else.
Well, there'll be a lot more talk about Cristiano Ronaldo over on our YouTube page. Make sure to subscribe to the action over there. And also from our team in Qatar as well. But just a look at some of the other notable contract terminations. There's some of the names there: Anelka, Mutu, Joey Barton.
How did Joey Barton get in there?
You don't expect to see a Cristiano Ronaldo's name on a list like this, so it's fair to say, isn't it? Joey Barton, how did he get in there? Well, for a dispute with his teammate at Rangers.
How was he only in there once, by the way?
Well, thank you very much for watching ESPN on YouTube. For more sports highlights and analysis, be sure to download the ESPN app. And for live streaming, premium content, and let's not forget as well, ESPN FC 7 days a week. Subscribe to ESPN Plus.